Hello and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast. Hoping you guys are doing awesome out there, getting it done both in and out of the gym. All right, so today I have an interesting topic. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because after I attended the Yorton Cup, which is the best of the pros for the OCB, you realize that even at that level of show, you're still going to see different types of physiques. And what I mean by that is that some look totally awesome, right? They step on stage. It really doesn't even matter where they place. You're like, wow, they did all the work that is necessary. They did everything within their power to look their best on this particular day. And then sometimes, even at the pro level, even the big OCB show, you'll see physiques that are good, deserving to be there, but deep down inside, you know that they still have potential of getting better. And seeing that firsthand, obviously you see it firsthand at amateur shows, but surprisingly, even on top pro shows for drug tested events, you'll notice that some people still haven't reached their potential. And you can tell where they are looking good, coupled with being younger, coupled with being novices, but still having the success of winning their pro card, that they can continue to improve, whether if it's getting leaner, getting more muscular, fixing their presentation, and all those things. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I think it's a good message, especially if you are striving for your pro card or you are just starting out, because we get so caught up into social media today thinking that we got to go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, and thinking that, you know what, I started working out, so why am I not getting bigger, stronger, faster, leaner? Why am I not winning shows? All these little things. Now, you've heard me say this over and over again, and that's why I'm not going to go into details, but this is more of a mental, mindset that you need to focus on achieving your physique potential, what you can accomplish, and to stay in the moment for as long as knowing that, you know what, I've been weight training 2 years. I'm nowhere near my potential. But then again, you have to question yourself, am I doing everything possible to reach my potential? And I think you should place the emphasis on that rather than the actual placements of shows. Because again, placements of shows don't dictate your progress. It shouldn't be celebrated because even if you win, because you're going to constantly get better when you do everything right. And then sometimes placements can just be messed up because of bad judging, or maybe you just got your butt kicked because they had other competitors in your class that reached their potential and just looked better than you. Those are the facts of life. So an interesting thing that I noticed, as far as my competitors that competed last weekend at the Yorton Cup, and I'm not going to name drop, but maybe you can guess if you follow, but the one that did well, she has reached her potential. And it's because she's been weight training for years, came to me a couple years ago. We fine-tuned things, focused a little bit more on building her upper body, specifically her back, presentation, how to fill her out properly, all those little things that I enjoy and love doing for coaching. And I would say she reached her potential. She can tweak things, get a couple percentages better, but she's done awesome. And she was awarded for it, all right? So there was no shame in saying this. And then there are other people, I see they get better and better, but they haven't reached their potential. Now, why does one not reach their potential yet? And the case is that when I work with someone, it's time. That's it. Because I'm confident, when I work with a client, and I trust that they're following my lead, they are grinding in the gym. They are pushing themselves. They're doing what needs to be done. You hear me say that over and over again. They know how to lift weights, correct form, technique, push themselves, not afraid to get stronger, not afraid to like challenge themselves, nail the diet, and their body gets better. But just so happens that you need more time doing the same thing to reach the potential. And typically that's going to grant you the placement that you're after. Now, does genetics play a role? Absolutely. You know, absolutely. And that's the mind fuck of it all. Because you can be doing everything right, reach your potential, but may not have the best genetics for the division that you're doing, and therefore you may not be rewarded. And that's kind of the same thing that I'm talking about with my one client where she reached her potential. She has great genetics in some areas, but you know what? In some, it's just not ideal. So therefore, it could be a greater challenge. So someone better can come along with greater genetics, may not reach their potential, and still take the win. That's the tough part about doing physique competitions, and that's why, as even at a high level, you focus on placements. Yeah, that's part of it, but you gotta take a step back and just say, wow, over the last 2 years that I've competed, I see significant changes in my physique. Now, what more can you ask for? Yes, you want to be rewarded for that on stage, but unfortunately, those who may have a better physique or better yet, better structure, genetics, could get the win, and even though they may not reach their potential. So that's the hard part, I have to admit, and it's sometimes it seems unfair. I'll be the first one to say that, where it's like, wow, this person did all the work, this person may not have, but they fit the criteria a little bit better. And that's another reason why you should always take a step back and continue to focus on yourself, and not the placement. Now, if you have only been weight training for a couple of years, or I would say even less than 3 or 4 years, you can't get too hyped up on placements, because yeah, you can win a show or you can come in dead last depending on who shows up and if you have more better genetics and all that stuff, but you have not yet reached your potential as far as building the ultimate physique. I say it's at least 10 years of weight training, and doing it right. You can be in and out of the gym for 15 years, not have the best diet for 15 years, and you haven't reached your, ultimate goal of your physique yet. But I'm condensing it, and I'm taking it for granted that, you as a person has applied everything, all the philosophies that I talk about, all the methods of weight training, all the mindset, for that time to capture what your physique could ultimately look like. Give you other examples. My two kids, one recently competed, 19-year-old. My daughter, a few years ago, won a pro card, will be competing again. They have fairly good genetics, I would like to say. Their work ethic is second to none. I don't have to, I don't question it. Discipline's awesome. Everything falls in line. But yet, they have not yet to reach their potential. And that's one of the conversations that I had to have with my son, because he's like, Dad, what else can I do? What else can I do to get better? Because I want to win my pro card. And I'm like, listen, Anthony, you're doing everything right. It's just a matter of continuing to do everything right. Let the body mature. Give yourself time. You're going to continue to get bigger because you've only been weight training seriously for maybe 2 years. And, things will fall in line. Don't focus on the placement. Focus on what you can control in the moment by continuing to build your body, and strive for what your total potential is as a physique athlete. And I have a conversation with other clients because they get caught up in the placement game and seeing how they just started, knowing that they're going to continue to get better because, they have the drive, they grind, they have a good, structure, they have the good genetics. And that's all it is, guys. That's what it comes down to. And I truly believe once you can accept that and pull back and continue to focus on your journey with every passing show. Even if you had to step back with your journey, even if maybe you had a tough prep, it's part of the ride of continuing to get better to ultimately reach the potential of your physique. Um, you know, when you've been weight training as long as I have, I always have to give you a Joe antidote. I reached my potential probably late 30s, early 40s. Like because I weight trained constantly for over 20 years before that point, and I did everything right in my opinion, and my physique peaked, and I thought I looked great, and within myself, yeah, I did want to win. I had some wins, all that stuff, and now it's just holding on. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that it probably took me, close to 20 years, if not 20 years, to reach the natural potential of my physique when it comes to muscle maturity, learning how to diet down properly while holding muscle, presentation on the stage. Where my genetics, I say, are average. They're not awesome. They're not poor. But even if you have poor genetics or whatever, small shoulder width, just natural and smaller, whatever the case may be, you still need to focus on yourself as far as realizing that your potential is most likely not met. And my guess is that most of you guys listening out there haven't reached it yet. So that's why it is you versus you. That's why you need to concentrate on ultimately learning what's best for your body, on needing to get better year after year, show after show, and not get wrapped up on, how you place in that one particular event that you just did. That's the thing about bodybuilding that is great and it sucks at the same time. You can feel lousy on show day, but also still remember that you have full control over it, right? I mean, you still can learn, gather data, push forward. In another anecdote, the first Yorton Cup that I did, I talked about that, I think, last week. I had no expectations at all, right? First pro show, I was just happy to be there, all that good stuff. And I finished middle of the road. And I talked about the whole points last week, how I finished in 7th, but there was only 1 point separating me and the 5th place guy. And then there were the top guys ahead of me. And I learned that because Matt Shepley, the promoter, God rest his soul, OCB founder, showed me the points, and it was pretty interesting. And he actually told me that, Joe, that you haven't reached your potential yet. Although I do believe that the guys in front of you took a step back and they could have looked better and thought everyone was unfairly judged. Now, I know it's a mishmash, but you also see that on stages nowadays where some people may have looked great and maybe they took a step back. But still, if they have that structure, it can help them. So there's a lot of little details out there that sometimes go into a placement where you shouldn't really get caught up. As long as you know that you did everything that was possible up until that point, that's what matters the most. And that's the attitude that you want to take, is continuing to strive to improve your physique year after year. That's the fun and the lousy part about bodybuilding. It really is. As a coach, I work with all types of physiques, all types of genetic gifted people to those who don't have the greatest genetics. And this is something that I got to remind them. And, it's unhealthy to have these high expectations knowing that you just started out. Now, you can think it in your head that ultimately you want to win the Yorton Cup, but you also got to realize that you've only been weight training for a year and you just started cleaning up your diet and you have, extra body fat. That is why your potential has not been reached yet. And it usually takes, I think, a good 10 years of doing everything close to right. Yeah, life stuff happens, injuries happen. You may miss weeks of days of weight training, all that stuff. But as long as you're not having downtimes of not weight training for 2 or 3 months out of each year, you're good to go and you're going to be on that path of achieving the physique that your body will allow and what you're going to do. And I say it over and over again. I think mostly everyone, if you do everything right and you're reaching your potentials, your ultimate physique, you could do really well at amateur shows and win your pro card. Now at the pro level, again, that's a little bit different. That's when you see those who need to have that structure, that X frame, or whatever the division calls for as far as criteria. A lot of that is God given, and what you get from your parents. And I know firsthand from judging these events, and that's the tough part. But don't let that ever discourage you or say, "Oh, I can never do it." No, that's bullshit. Because again, as I started off with this podcast, you saw all different types at the Yorton Cup. But there needs to be criteria to be able to separate different physiques and different genetic potentials, because someone has to win, right? Someone has to come in first, someone has to come in last. It's the nature of the game. So really, the take-home point, and I think I went off on a tangent as I usually do, achieving your physique and achieving the potential that you have to stay within and not focus on the placement. Your focus and your goal is literally on yourself, on what your physique can accomplish, and not anyone else. And that's why social media sucks, because social media is the highlight reel of people who are usually not prepared, or the highlight reel of people that need to show off, rather than keeping it a little bit of privacy, keeping it into yourself, embracing your journey and what you are accomplishing. So use social media as it is. You'll see people winning these big shows that post all this shit all the time. And then vice versa, you'll see people that, haven't and will not ever win a big show, but they want to put it out anyway. Whatever it is, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not telling you not to post stuff on social media, but don't pay attention to other people that you think you're going to be competing against. That's not going to help you. That's not going to help your mindset of reaching what your goal can ultimately, what your physique can ultimately look like. Let that go, okay? You versus you, do your own, and you'll be on the path of reaching your full physique potential. If this was a drinking game, I wonder how many times I said those words. Someone's got to go back and count, or maybe I can have AI do it. All right, so I'm going to sign off. Hopefully this has been helpful. Good to be back. Again, if you're interested in coaching, learning my philosophies, Team Franco, hit me up with an email, fitfranco@verizon.net. Check out my socials, and I'll talk to you next time. Take it easy.